Tadej Pogacar just destroyed the field in possibly the hardest World Championship road race that we've ever seen. And it was clear to everybody watching at home that Tadej was head and shoulders above every other rider on the road. And most of the riders that were interviewed after the race seemed to feel the same way. However, not everybody, because Remco Evenepoel seemed to imply that the only thing standing between him and the rainbow bands yesterday was his dodgy saddle. So is Remco deluded, or does he have a point that he would have got the win otherwise? Well, let's have a look at Remco's words themselves, and I'll tell you why I think Tadej would have won regardless. Tadej launched his race-altering attack on Mont Kigali at about the 105 kilometre to go mark, and the gap between Tadej and Remco at the end of the race was about 1 minute 30. And to those of us watching at home, it looked like Remco just didn't have the legs to go with Tadej at the crucial attack point, but also afterwards. But as we'll see now from this interview clip in his own words, Remco certainly didn't feel that way, and he had some choice words implying that he probably would have been able to go with Tadej, and certainly at the front of the race, if it hadn't been for his bike troubles. And he had this to say.
And kind of how'd that play out? You look awfully frustrated, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I was cramping up the moment we had to go quite all out because my saddle dropped down completely, and the movement of my pedaling was quite small, and yeah, I was cramping up in my hammies completely, so I just couldn't push with that saddle. I mean, with the saddle problem. So I really had to change my bike quickly. And yeah, then here I took my third bike, and I had the feeling that the saddle was too straight. Normally I go down a bit with the saddle, and I was having a lot of lower back problems and pain at that moment because of the problems in the past with my injuries. So I really had to change because I couldn't ride that bike for 1K longer. I was really in a lot of pain. So then I had to wait for the car to come to me to bring my second bike, and then I felt that position was yeah, just correct. So then I also started to feel better again in the race and came back to every group, and in the end second, but yeah, that's not what we came for, of course.
So as Remco explains there, he had to do 2 bike swaps. He says when he was getting distanced by Tadej on Mont Kigali, it was because his saddle had broken after hitting a pothole just before, and his hamstrings were cramping, meaning he wasn't able to follow the crucial moves. And he says he had to do the second bike swap later on because the saddle for that one was straight when actually it should usually be pointing a little bit downwards, and that was causing him some back problems, which were a remnant from his crash a few years ago, which makes total sense. He's kind of saying there that the reason he couldn't go with Tadej wasn't because Tadej's power was amazing, it was a brilliant attack, it's because his hamstrings were hurting and cramping. So we're going to keep that in mind for later on, but what else does he have to say?
I'm sure you were spurred on by anger as well, but you must be thinking, well, what could have been, because you really showed that you had the strength out there to fight for this gold medal. Kind of what was going through your mind afterwards, and if anything, what did you say to Tadej? And
is it just me, or does it look like Remco's deciding very carefully how many Swiss francs he's going to get fined by the UCI for brutally assaulting the interviewer after the race?
how will you walk away from this World Championships in Kigali, Remco?
Of course, I'm very happy. First and second is a good result, but the goal of myself and of the national team was to take gold twice. But in the end, yeah, in a World Championship, if you want to win, everything needs to be perfect. I think nobody became a world champion with any bad luck. I mean, everything needs to be perfect on that day, and unfortunately, that wasn't the case for us today. But yeah, from tomorrow.
So that was interesting because he seems to say you've got to have really good luck. You can't have any bad luck. Almost implying that, you know, the result's down to a bit of bad luck, which is interesting because it's a 1 minute 30 gap over Tadej, isn't it? So, but I think he has a bit more for us in another interview that sheds a bit more light on what he means. So let's have a look at that.
Remco Evenepoel, a silver medal around your neck. What taste?
Does he look like he's been crying? I'm imagining that. I thought Pidcock looked like he'd been crying as well, but maybe it's just the air in Rwanda.
Does this medal have for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's still a medal, so I need to be happy with that. But of course, yeah, it's let's say a sour one, this one, because I think everybody saw what happened in the race. And yeah, I think I was feeling very good all day, but just some bad luck and yeah,
just some bad luck.
Some cramps because of the bike positions. Yeah, I think.
and some cramps because of the bike position. So just some bad luck and some cramps because of the bike position. That's why he's saying he lost today.
Back in the race, they've been working for me all day, so I'm not the type of guy to just let it go and stop the race. So yeah, I just continued and yeah, kind of hold the same pace as Tadej behind. I mean, after the gap was made. So yeah, I'm happy with my fighting spirit and with my result in the end. So yeah, up to the next one.
So again, it's kind of interesting because he seems to be implying there from what he says, oh, when Tadej had the gap, it didn't go out, I was able to hold it there. It was only some bad luck. He's sort of implying that if it wasn't for the bike stuff, he would have been there at the front, he would have been challenging Tadej. Now, I've got to say, I disagree with that, and I don't think that's the case at all. I think Tadej still would have won, and this is why. He won by 90 seconds. That bike change and the cramps was not worth 90 seconds, there's no way. When Tadej attacked, it was a decisive, brutal attack. Very few people were able to go with him. Del Toro and Ayuso, and that was it. So say Remco's right, say that he didn't have the cramps, he was able to go with Tadej. He's still getting dropped later on. There's no way that he's not getting dropped later on the other climbs. We could see that from when Tadej continued to do the course and the remaining laps. He was brutalising that climb and he was putting his time essentially into the group behind. I don't agree with that at all. What he says to kind of justify that is, when I got the gap with Tadej, I was able to hold it steady. That's not true either. Actually, if you look at it, when it was a group of Healy, Skelmoser, and Remco, that gap pretty much wasn't really it wasn't getting any closer, that's for sure, in the last couple of laps. It was kind of staying where it was, and it actually was getting a bit bigger. It stayed around 50 seconds for a while, then it went out to a minute, and then the next lap it was 1 minute 15. Tadej gained about 15 seconds that lap. That was the point where Remco then decided to attack Skelmoser and Healy, realising that even if they were helping, and they'd actually both just come through for a turn, so it was great racecraft, Remco then attacked them because he realised they weren't going to be able to bring the gap back to Tadej, and he wanted to secure silver. He actually brought the gap down by about 10 seconds to Tadej then. It came down from 1:15 to about 1:04, 1:05. However, what was the gap by the end? It was 1 minute 30. So that Tadej took another 25 seconds on Remco in the final lap, I think it was, the final 10, 15 kilometres, which means that Remco didn't hold that gap steady at all. When they were both solo on the road with no help in first and second, Tadej's gap got bigger. It got significantly bigger. So I don't think that that's true at all. I think Tadej paced this one absolutely perfectly. Not like last year when he was running out of gas towards the end. He looked strong throughout. He looked really strong all the way until the end. I saw him grimace for the first time at about the 10-kilometre mark, and he did look like he was suffering then. But even then, the gap didn't come down. He was able to hold it steady. He knew exactly what pace he was going to be able to hold from the duration to the finish, and he did exactly that. So I disagree with Remco that he was able to sort of hold that gap steady with Tadej. And look, I've got something else that I really want to point out here, and that's Remco is great value for interviews. He can always be relied on to get annoyed, say something ridiculous to the interviewer just because out of sheer frustration. He's really good for it. So I know that he's talking here kind of out of frustration, and maybe it's not really how he'll feel today when he wakes up, but certainly he seems to be implying that the only reason he's lost is because of these bike issues, and he would have been able to match or even beat Tadej otherwise. I just think that's almost deluded. I think there's no way that's possible. Remco's great value for entertainment in these interviews. However, he is not a great loser. He can be a good winner, but he's not a great loser. Now, Tadej is a great winner and a great loser. You look at the TT interview, the World Champs TT last week, when Remco beat Tadej, took 2.6 minutes or whatever it was, and overtook him. At the end of the race, Tadej said, I hadn't been feeling great, I hadn't been able to prepare properly. That being said, Remco is the best in the world and he's fantastic. What a great ride to him. Chapeau. Those were the words from Tadej. At no point in either of these interviews does Remco say, well done, Tadej. Congratulations, Tadej. Great ride, Tadej. Tadej was strong. He's not even a factor. He's not mentioned once. He's even asked it directly by the interviewer in one of these. What did you say to Tadej? And he ignores the question, doesn't mention it, and just says, I had really bad luck. We were here to win. I'm really disappointed. It's a sour taste in my mouth. Look, I get it. To be one of the best pros in the world, there has to be that self-belief, that will to win, that desire to win. And when they don't win, they should be annoyed. You know, Remco's trained for this, his team have worked for this. I get him being annoyed and I get him being frustrated. That being said, Tadej was clearly the strongest today. He was the best rider in the world on the day, without question. Bike change, no bike change, cramps, no cramps. He was going to beat Remco no matter what. Remco might try and justify this to himself by saying that the only reason he lost was because of the bike change and not the legs, but I just don't see it myself. Let's not forget that Tadej has had his own equipment issues in the past. We've seen him crash before, get back on the bike and continue to win. These things happen as part of bike racing. You have to be able to win with everything in combination, but at the end of the day, usually the strongest rider on the road wins. So to me, it feels like Remco hasn't given Tadej the full credit that he deserves for an incredible world-beating performance, especially just 1 week removed from that crushing defeat to Remco at the TT. That makes it, for me, even more impressive. So, what do you think? Was Remco unlucky or was he just making excuses? Let me know down below what you think. So thank you guys for watching this one. Make sure you like and comment. It's free and it really helps the channel. And if you want to see more pro cycling content like this, make sure you subscribe as well. Catch you on the next one.